Hey, Pankaj Raval back here again today, talking about founder prenups or pre-formation agreements. One of the biggest decisions you can make when starting a company is who's your partner going to be? Are you going to go solo, or are you going to have someone by your side, or maybe a couple people? There is data out there that says multi-member startups are more successful overall. That is actually a personal choice that you're going to have to determine. Are you going to be wearing all the hats, or can you find someone that could potentially split some of the work with you, especially if you know that you're a technical founder, for example, and you don't have some of the sales or business experience. So in this video, we're going to talk about what it is that you should be looking out for at the beginning of a founder prenup or a partnership. A founder prenup is a term that has been used by a few different people online, coaches, and other people. Actually, Alyssa Cohn is one of the people that actually introduced me to the idea. And the whole premise is that you want to treat your founder relationship kind of like you do your personal relationship. You know, whether you are married, or if maybe you have had a prenup in your relationships, if you got married. This is a similar idea, but not quite as scary. And the reason is that in a business endeavor, you want to make sure that you guys are on the same foot, but also understand people on a more personal level. And like, you know, the emotional issues that can arise when you talk about prenups. Is there breach of trust here? Why do we even need a prenup? With a business agreement, there's also already an understanding that this really needs to be built on trust. And how do we facilitate that? And that's where the founder prenup comes in. So a founder prenup is really at its core a document that clarifies what are the expectations and working styles of the parties. And a few elements that go into the founder prenup are a discussion of values, a discussion of culture, a discussion of working style, a discussion of long and short-term goals, and how you deal with stress. Now you may think that, well, what does this have to do with building a business? It has everything to do with building a business. Businesses are built on relationships. You can have the best business plan in the world. I don't care if it is the next Google. If you and your founders do not get along, and if you guys cannot see eye to eye and communicate clearly and also argue effectively, your business is doomed for failure. And that's why I think the founder prenup or this pre-formation agreement is so important. It really gets you off on the right foot as you build your business. So let's get into the first element of a founder prenup, and that is understanding your roles. It's really important that each of you in this venture understand what your roles are going to be. Who's doing what, who's in charge of what. If someone's a technical lead, someone's a business lead, very important to just clarify that and put it in writing what the roles are, because then you guys can divide and conquer. Otherwise, you're going to have two co-CEOs, and that never works. Okay, let me tell you that right now. If you guys are thinking about having your titles both be CEO, 98% of the time ends in disaster. I've seen it cost lots of money. Clients have gone through litigation because of it. Do not do it. Make sure you guys have clearly defined roles and try to stick to those roles as much as possible, so you guys are dividing and conquering, and can you be as efficient as possible with running a company. If you're not sure on how to determine your roles, you can look at online resources such as DISC assessments or Myers-Briggs. Look at what your innate strengths are for each of the founders and understand who does what naturally well. It doesn't make sense for me, who's not a developer, to be in a CTO role because I just don't have those skill sets, and vice versa. If someone is a really strong technical founder but they don't really have the management or leadership skills, it doesn't make sense for them to be on the management or sales side. So really understand what you bring to the table and where you thrive, because that's really important with the growth of the company. The next thing you want to consider is, can you challenge each other? Can you actually ask the difficult questions? Now, this is kind of like this idea of radical candor and other areas where can you really bring up difficult issues with the company and do it in a way that makes the other person non-defensive. Now, one way to do this, I'm a big fan of something called nonviolent communication. You can read about it online. Again, nonviolent communication. There's tons of great resources out there. The idea is here, you want to make sure that you can have really great, important, deep conversations where each of you is vulnerable and understands the importance of seeing your vision, but also hearing the other person out. You want to be able to facilitate this conversation in a deep and meaningful way so you guys can get to the best outcome possible for this company. And conflicts are going to arise, but it's really important to also discuss, when there is a conflict, how are we going to deal with it? Are we going to go out and maybe play a round of golf? Are we going to go for a hike? There are constructive ways to have these conversations in another place where maybe it isn't as intense. You know, if you're having them in a conference room, there's bright lights, maybe it's not ideal for trying to work through problems. I know Steve Jobs and other CEOs in Silicon Valley would go for walks. I love going for walks. Have a nice walk with someone and have a conversation, because that's what it is. It's about a conversation. It's about getting to a place where you both can live with the solutions that you guys come up and also figure out the best path forward for both of you. So think about that. How are you going to disagree? And when you do fight, it is imperative for all couples, whether it's personal or professional relationships, to fight well well. Those are the couples that stay together, who can have arguments and come back together and say, hey, I still respect you, I still respect what you're doing, but maybe we disagree about this and that, but we can still have those disagreements and continue on and building something amazing. The next thing to consider is planning for different scenarios. Now, what if someone wants to hire a family member? What if there's a need for capital? What if there is a offer to buy you out 1 year in? What if the company sees another avenue to consider in a year and maybe wants to pivot? How are you going to deal with these questions? And it's not easy. There's no set answer to it, but I think the real fundamental way to deal with it is to be able to have these difficult conversations, have these crucial conversations in a respectful manner, and to have them often. Set time aside each week or each month to have a dinner together, to go on those hikes, to go on those walks, and spend that time together. I know personally, my wife and I have a check-in. We try to do it once a week, but the idea is, okay, what went well this week? What didn't go well this week? What's bothering me? What am I appreciative of? Make it positive as well as potentially some things that are bothering you. Sometimes these conversations, when you sit together, can go towards, oh, what am I not happy about? But really, it's about, what do you appreciate about this other person? What are you grateful for? But also, where do I need more, or where are my needs not being met? So have conversation both ways, but make sure to have that conversation. Set time. Just as you will prioritize a personal relationship, you need to prioritize the founder relationship. The last thing is something I discussed earlier, but again, make sure you spend time together. This is kind of related to the other points, but creating that time and space to really get to know each other, to get to know each other on a personal level. This is why, sometimes people who are friends become co-founders. It's great, but also you have to make sure you have that consistent communication, open communication, that mutual trust, and scheduling the time to talk, because businesses can be very challenging. You guys both can be in different directions, maybe different cities, trying to grow this business. Spend time together. Really important to the success of your founder relationship. To summarize, we've talked about importance of defining your values, defining the culture you want for the company. We've also talked about defining your roles. If you don't know your roles, think about getting a DISC assessment or a Myers-Briggs assessment. Understand what it is each of you brings to the table and write it down. The next thing is, can you challenge each other? How do you challenge each other? How do you have these crucial conversations with each other that will challenge the other person's perspective, but also do it in a respectful way to get best possible outcome? Neither of you should feel like you have to bowl over or to roll over when someone wants their way, maybe because someone's more aggressive or assertive. You both should feel heard and seen in these relationships. The next thing is plan for different scenarios. What if someone wants to leave? What if someone has a family? What if you guys need to move to another city for an incubator? How are we going to deal with these things? Not always easy. There's many different scenarios that could come up, but think about it briefly. How are we going to handle that? And maybe that means a share redemption agreement where you guys can redeem the shares if someone needs to leave within the first year, because if they're not involved in the first year or past the first year, maybe they don't get the equity that you have initially discussed. So again, those are some ways to deal with that, but there's many other considerations, but things you should be just at least briefly touching on early on in this founder relationship. And then the last thing is spend time together. Make sure you prioritize the founder relationship. Don't let yourself get so busy with the business that you neglect the relationship. Just like personal relationships, you really need to invest and spend time in the founder relationships, get to know each other, care for each other. And when that means whenever there's a disagreement, you'll be able to get past the disagreement and be able to continue to grow a company, one that you both care deeply about and will hopefully be working in for many years to come, and will be an opportunity to realize your greatest potential. My name is Pankaj Raval. I'm the founder of Carbon Law Group. We are coming out with some tools and resources in the near future on creating a founder prenup. Please look out for those. In the meantime, if you are interested in this topic, please drop us a comment, ask us any questions. We'd love to chat, and we wish you the best on your journey.